Hey, I got a dad joke for you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, why'd the coach go to the bank?
Let the coach go to the bank. I don't know.
To get his quarterback.
Oh,
Come on, man.
First and four. You know the name. We came to break the
all right.
game.
Welcome to First and Four, the podcast where father and his firstborn son break down America's four biggest sports: football, basketball, baseball, and hockey. From hot takes to generational debates, we're moving the change one conversation at a time. Let's get right into it. Um, we've got a crazy, had a crazy weekend of NFL games, college football championships going on as we're recording. We're kind of watching that in the background. Uh, Baseball's had some moves going on. Hockey and basketball are still moving. So yeah, let's jump right in. Um, First up, moving the chains. Conversation I think we can have today, just incorporating all the sports once again, is going league by league, the four professional leagues, and talking about which position you'd want to build a franchise around.
Okay.
Okay, so starting off with the NFL, which position would you build a franchise around?
Well, I think with football or with the NFL, it's got to be the quarterback, right? I don't know that. I guess or anything that involves the quarterback, but I would say the quarterback's probably the first thing that you want to build around. Really, you got to get that success with them. The rookie deals, that are extended out. I think you get them on a contract that's a little less, and then you can kind of build other pieces to that. You look back in the past at like the Seahawks when they had Russell Wilson at the time. I mean, look at the playoffs right now. You've got Bo Nix, who obviously got hurt this weekend, but younger quarterback. You've got Drake May in his second year. Had Caleb Williams, not in the
Yeah,
playoffs anymore. Um, but a lot of young guys, right? And I think that's where teams are able to put other pieces in place when you've got that essential piece at the quarterback position that is good enough to manage the game, and then again, kind of get you what you need to build on for the rest of the team there. So I think the quarterback to me is probably the main piece of the puzzle that you got to have to build around.
yeah, I'd agree with the quarterback, and I think just to expand, I also think that once you have that guy on the rookie deal, eventually you got to extend him.
Yeah.
But during that 4 or 5 years, depending on what round you drafted him in and whether you got that fifth year option available, um, I think you really have the opportunity to build an identity as a team, figure out what you're going to do, develop the players that are there that you have for cheaper, and that way when you do have to sign that quarterback of the future that you found in an extension, you figured out how to make everything work around them, and you know what your team is moving forward,
Yeah, that's
right?
a good point too. Yeah, that is, I think, where the other pieces come into place. I do think, some people could say like left tackle um, could be a good piece, but I feel like the left tackle's there to protect the quarterback, right?
Right.
Or on the flip side, you could go defense and say like defensive end uh, is another good piece, right? But that's to attack somebody else's quarterback. So to me, I think the quarterback's kind of the key essential piece you gotta start with, and then to your point, I think there are some other pieces you got to figure out the identity. The coach comes into play too there
Yeah.
too, right? I think between coach and quarterback, if you don't have that combination sink down, look back to the Bears a year ago. Like I think Caleb Williams was the right pick. You didn't have a coach in Eberflus that was lined up with him well enough to advance him to where he needed to be. You put Ben Johnson in there, obviously, big difference offensively with them this year than they were last year. Um, so I think it takes the right culture and environment for them to be successful in. But I think it's got to start with that position first, and then those other pieces got to fit in around it. So
Yeah, I agree. And you said that defensive end is an argument people make, and I think you just look at the Browns.
yeah,
They had Miles Garrett break the sack record, and it didn't matter because they didn't exactly have the quarterback, or they fired Stefanski, just wasn't the right fit at coach. So
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Because Stefanski, could have Stefanski could have been a pretty good coach, I think, but uh, again, quarterback, right? Like, did he have the right pieces there? I think when they got Watson, I don't know, he was the right fit for him, and I don't think that it was ever really going to work between the two of them. And we'll see what kind of success he has down in Atlanta now at this point. But I do think that combination really makes a big difference when you got those two together. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, moving on down to basketball. I'm kind of curious what you've got thought of for basketball, especially kind of in the landscape of today's game.
It's interesting because this one I thought a lot about. I think it's kind of changed throughout the generations. In basketball, it's kind of tough because it's like you go guard, forward, center. I think back to 40, 50 years ago, obviously there's no 3-point line. You're talking about all the big guys, the Chamberlains, the Russells. Even when Jordan was drafted, right? Like he went number 2 because they took Sam Bowie number 1, another big guy. So I feel like at that point, and Magic Johnson, Larry Bird kind of right before him, but I think at that point it started kind of changing a little bit. And when the 3-point line got into place, it was more the scoring type of players. So I think it kind of depends. I feel like nowadays, if you had to say, hey, what are you going to build around? It's probably more that transitional, whether you call it a 4 or a 5, but the stretch player. Think Wemby, think Kevin Durant, guys that can play multiple positions, but are bigs, right? They're 6'11", they're 7+ feet tall, but they can stretch the floor. They can play multiple positions and roles. So that one I think is hard for me to say hey, this is the position you want to build around. I think it's almost like you need the alpha male scorer, I guess, is maybe more the way I would phrase that. For what do you actually need? I don't know. It's a position. It's more like the personality
Yeah,
of the player.
the difference maker, someone
Yeah.
that, matchup problem for the other team.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, I think I kind of agree. Wemby kind of came to mind when it's what do you want to build around? And I thought about leaning point guard here. Having that reliable guy to bring the ball up, kind of conduct the offense is kind of what I think of when I think of a point guard. But the more I thought about that, you think of like Chris Paul has been, just kind of going team to team for a while, and it kind of works out because he has the experience and, as far as his skill and his ability to see the court, even though he's getting older, that part's still there.
Yeah.
And he's able to bring that aspect of the team, mentor guys, just bring leadership. And so I don't know if I'd quite say point guard because, again, like that was kind of my initial thought, but I just feel like you can bring in a guy, on the older side who just has the experience once you have maybe a younger core.
Yeah.
So, I'd agree with someone who can stretch the floor, stretch the defense, and be a matchup problem.
The matchup problem, exactly what I was just going to say. It's a matchup problem, right? When you can't match up to somebody, and they can, call it a point forward before or whatever. They can run the point. They can play down low. That kind of stretch player, I think, is probably what. Again, looking at today's game, that's probably what you're looking to build around. Again, 50 years ago, it's a different question, or a different answer, I guess, to the question. But I think today it's got to be some stretch player that's going to do something a little bit different.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Baseball. What do you got for baseball?
It's another tough one where baseball has so many different positions and players and options, opportunities. This one was a little bit harder to do, but I do think for me, my choice, I guess, was shortstop. And really it's kind of that infield boss, or we talk about quarterback a lot. We talked about that in football. You talk about point guard and basketball are just being kind of the general on the court, right? Being able to lead the team out there. I feel like the shortstop is kind of that same thing for baseball teams where they're the leader of the infield. They're, most of the balls are going to be hit that way. If you got right-handed batters, right, are coming to them. They're in a lot of the action, double plays, and really kind of calling things there. I think of guys like Derek Jeter, Cal Ripken Jr., Ozzie Smith, on and on down the line. Obviously, Ernie Banks with the Cubs was a shortstop to begin with. I think he moved over to first base later on. But those are the players. thought about pitchers where you might want to build around like an ace or something like that, but that's tough because they only have so many rotations, right? They're on one day and then you're off multiple days. You're not playing in every single one of the games. Where you got a shortstop, always going to be batting, going to be playing the field, and I feel like you need that kind of leader general to build your team around. So that's where I'd go with it. I'd say shortstop.
Yeah, and I also stuck away from pitcher. The Pirates came to mind with Paul Skeens, who's obviously one of the best pitchers in the game, but it doesn't matter because they just can't build a team around him.
Yeah.
So they haven't found that easy, and I think going off my last example too, where I think the catcher is kind of an underrated position. But again, I think you can have a veteran presence there who knows the game and has a feel for what's going on. As far as the pitching and what needs to happen, is really directing everything. So again, I don't know that I'd necessarily say that's the guy either. And I think with baseball, it's just I don't know. I think I want a hot bat, somebody who's making contact, getting on base, and I think for me, just in today's game, maybe this is straying a little bit from the question, but I think I want an outfielder. I don't think it matters necessarily where, but I think just an exciting guy. A lot of times I think of outfielders, I think of the great athletes that can move, they're quick, and maybe shortstop a little bit too. But I think a lot of great athletes are out in the outfield. Taller guys that are gonna be able to stretch out and just like a lot of pure athletes out there that can move quick and hopefully also make contact, be in different spots in the lineup. And so I think I'd go outfield. And I guess I kind of said I was maybe straying from the question a little bit because I think I also factored in, the way the MLB at least is working where, you're just looking to make money in a sense because there's no salary cap. I think an exciting guy in the outfield who's making, great catches, awesome plays, and is just all over the place and then also has a, great bat is going to sell tickets. It's going to bring people in. They're going to be exciting players. So I think I'm going to go outfielder, but this is definitely the hardest one for me.
Yeah, that one is tough. And I do think, I guess if you look at outfield, maybe center field, I think of like guys like Griffey.
Yeah.
More power hitters maybe out in the outfield too, where today's game maybe is a little, I don't know, generated more towards the power hitting where you're not looking at just getting on base. It's, are you getting the ball over the fence, right? And so yeah, I think it kind of makes sense. I do feel like you need that general in the infield too. I think baseball has a deep roster, so it's tough to I don't know, to kind of figure out what position is the right one to build around. You need a lot of good young core to build around. And so is it one position or is it multiple? Baseball is maybe one where it's multiple spots you actually need to fill to build around. To your point, the Pirates, you got an ace pitcher in Skeens. What else are you putting around the guy to really be successful? If he's only on the mound a few days a week, you're not going to get as much production out of that versus somebody that's there every single day, playing day in and day out. So
yeah, for sure. All right, and then finally, hockey. What are you thinking for hockey position to build around?
We're not hockey experts, right? But I do think, not necessarily. But I think again, I go back to that quarterback type role. You think about who's going to be the general on the ice. And I think it's really the center. So you're in every single face-off, right? And it says a first line center, I guess, is if you want to get specific. But McDavid, McKinnon, Sidney Crosby, when he started out. So I think you got to have somebody who's in it all the time on the face-off, great scorer. I talk about a few of those guys, like they're competing every single year. Now, obviously, McDavid hasn't won a cup yet. His time will come, right? I think eventually here he's going to get past over the hump, but I think he's been in it, right? Every single one of these playoffs, like you're talking about the Connor McDavids and things like that. And same with McKinnon on the Avalanche too. So I think those guys definitely having that center mid position and leaders there and guys that can just feed the puck anywhere and everywhere across the ice. that's what you, from my perspective, what I want to build around from a hockey team.
Okay. Yeah, interesting. I think for me, I don't necessarily disagree with the logic there, but I think I want a goalie. To me, I like having the security of, that last line of defense being something that's going to be difficult for the opposing team to get through. I think that the goalie is just such a crucial thing. It's almost, kind of like the pitcher in baseball where like they very much control a lot of the scoring. But the goalie is out there every time.
Yeah.
And so I just think, and I think, when you think of injuries on a hockey team, if you lose one of your, top scorers, obviously that's not going to be great. But if you lose your goalie, that can be a disaster for sure.
Yeah.
Because again, like that's your starting goalie for a reason. They're the guy you trust most to stop the puck. And so for me, that's who I want to build around. I want the security of knowing, okay, I've got this guy locked down. I don't have to worry about, rotating through goalies, finding a guy who can play that position well. I can lock that down and I can build the rest of my team. And, I want that elite scorer, but I think I prioritize the goalie and then kind of build a group of guys who works together and focus on the goalie first.
Defense first, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so.
I'm going scoring.
Yeah.
Wayne Gretzky always said, shot not taken is goal not scored. I feel like he's one of the best hockey players ever. So we're going to go with
All right.
the guy that's going to get me the goals.
All right, I guess so. Okay, moving on to 2 minutes in the box. What you putting in the box today?
Oh, man. There's been a lot in this past week I feel like I could go with here. But I over the last couple days, the NFL games, and we haven't got into the games really yet to kind of break down what we want to. But I think Saturday we're watching Broncos and Bills. There's a pass, late in the game. Josh Allen makes. Receiver has it coming down. Knee hits the ground. Defender comes over the top, takes the ball out of his hands. It's called an interception for the Broncos. Next day, Bears are playing against the Rams. Devontae Adams has a catch, going down, knee hits the ground, ball stripped out. Bears come out with it. Similar looking play. In fact, I saw the picture of the two images on top of each other. Looked very, very similar.
I was going to say, if you've been on the internet at all, you've probably seen it.
Over and over, right? Yeah, I'm a Bears fan. So that kind of like, what did I just see last night? What am I seeing here today? But man, these refs, like I got to put these refs in the box. Like I still don't understand what's a catch from like game to game, week to week. I mean, that was one day to the next on very close games. And one day it's a catch or not a catch, I guess, the first day, and it's an interception. The next day it's a catch, he's down. What's the ruling here? I don't these refs, we got to get something figured out a little better to be a little more consistent. Again, one way or the other, we got to call it what it is, but it can't be inconsistent like it is from day to day. And especially when, the internet's going to start putting these things up, in an image on top of each other for everybody to see. And the NFL is not going to come out and say anything about it, but like somebody's got to address what the heck's going on here because it's crazy.
Yeah, well, with the screenshots, there's times where like people will put stuff up next to each other with like one of those open receivers, downfield, where it's like, oh, this guy was open on this play. Well, you got to take it into context, and it's like, well, maybe the quarterback, was scrambling off the other way and couldn't see him. Whatever.
Yeah, right.
But I do think in this instance, like watching those catches, they looked exactly the same.
Yeah.
Or catch and not catch, I guess. And again, that was the turning point in that Bills game.
Yeah, that was a huge play.
And
the Bears didn't have a turnover the whole entire game, so that was one of those where they're most takeaways in the league this season. That's what their defense, and the defense looked great yesterday, but like they are used to getting turnovers, getting the ball back, and to not have one, the entire four quarters and then overtime was huge. It's a kind of a momentum killer too. So, I think it's frustrating to not be consistent from day to day.
Yeah, and you said nobody really knows what's catch anymore, and I completely agree. I don't know. It's just game to game. It just seems like it's something different we've never seen, or something where it's like, oh, is this a catch? And the term the football move in the rule books, where it's like, what's a football move? Can that
Right.
change game to game? It's just so subjective.
Apparently, falling down's a football move. I don't know. Yeah.
Just now.
Yeah.
Okay, you good with that?
Yeah.
All right, my I'm putting in the box, I guess, is cheap baseball owners. So, again, another pretty big storyline. Would be Kyle Tucker going to the Dodgers.
Mhm.
The Cubs had the chance to extend them last season, probably mid-season. They
Yep.
chose not to, which, as Cubs fans, definitely sucks. But
Mhm.
it's just, it's at the point where you can complain about the Dodgers and how much money they spend. And I hear you. It's hard when that's the biggest market. They do have the most money and they're able to spend it, and it's the reason there's probably not going to be baseball next year
Yeah.
after the season. So, it's tough. But I think more the problem isn't the teams that are spending; it's the teams that aren't. You look at a team like the Cubs, which I just mentioned, where they did go out and get Bregman, which is awesome, but they are a bigger market. They have the money, and a lot of times they won't spend it. And in a sport where there is no salary cap, I get that even a team like the A's, the Marlins, these teams that don't make quite as much money, there is still money there. It's not like you don't have any money to go out and get any guys. And obviously, it's hard to compete with the Dodgers or somebody who's just going to outbid you. But at a point, I feel like there's something to be done.
Yeah.
As far as spending money goes, the Dodgers don't have just every player, and so to me, it's the issue is more the owners that won't go out and spend money. And so, as far as this lockout goes, I'm more in favor of a salary floor as opposed to a salary cap, where it's like, hey, these are multi-million, multi-billion-dollar,
Yeah.
franchises, whatever. Um, and so, you have the money, spend minimum amount so that these teams you're rolling out there are at least somewhat competitive and have a chance to win a World Series eventually or something.
Yeah.
Because I think, again, like I said, you can complain all you want about the Dodgers, but these other teams that aren't spending money, I think, are just as much, if not more, the problem.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the Dodgers, they're doing everything in their power to win, and there's nothing against the
Yeah, you
rules
can't
and nothing there.
penalize
No,
them.
they're not. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, it is kind of frustrating. I don't know if the salary floor fixes. I don't know. That maybe is a debate for some time here too. But like, uh, salary cap, salary floor. I know the players are not going to be for a salary cap, right? Because
No,
obviously, then you're
doesn't
capping
benefit them.
it doesn't benefit them. Uh, the owners are, a lot of them are going to be against the salary floor, so it is going to be interesting in another year here. Like, what's going to happen with baseball? Yeah, do we go on strike again? And like in my lifetime, there's been a couple different times that they've gone on strike. I mean, the mid '90s was one of the worst ones that they had. Uh, it's kind of crazy to think about, like a sport that big uh, could potentially be going on strike, and we wouldn't have baseball for a extended period of time potentially next year. So they got to do something a little different. Maybe the salary floor is the way to go, but yeah, these owners. I guess I don't understand why you'd want to go out and own a baseball team and not want to be competitive. These guys have enough money. That's why they're baseball owners. I guess, and maybe it's on the commissioners and these other owners too that own the other teams. As people are coming in to buy the teams, vetting the process, making sure you've got the right people in there that are going to be willing to compete is the other thing there too. And I guess I don't know what you do, yeah, with people that have been in there for a long time. Again, maybe it's just pressure from some of the other owners. Uh, but it definitely makes it more fun when it is more competitive across the league. Again, think of the NFL. Like, it's fun from year to year that you've got a little bit of churn and different kind of teams coming in now, um, getting better and better and getting looks. The way that they have the schedules and things like that set up. Um, Baseball's got to do something to get a little bit more competitive, so you're not so top heavy and then bottom poor, right? Uh, and not just having the Dodgers kind of roll through everything every single year. Something's got to change.
Yep.
So
Yeah, I'd agree. Something's got to change. Just watch Carson Beck throw an interception on what was going to be the game-winning drive, or he was attempting to make it the game-winning drive. So that's it.
great. Yeah, I don't want to watch this at all.
Well, so now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I completely. Yeah, I think we're on the same page there.
Yeah,
most part.
I would agree with the owner. Yeah, something's got to be done though with the
Yeah, for sure.
the owners there.
All right, on to our 2-minute drills. This will be quick. So our question for football: who is the best regular season quarterback?
So I'm going to take this from a regular season standpoint. I'm not thinking playoffs. I'm not thinking Super Bowls, anything like that. I'm just thinking straight regular season. And I'm going to say Dan Marino from a quarterback standpoint. If he's the first one to get over 5,000 yards passing, which back in the early 80s was not people weren't passing the ball like that, right? So it was 1984, I think, is when he threw over 5,000 yards, 48 touchdowns, the most at the time. Also, obviously, there's been several players, Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, Drew Brees, several others have thrown for over 5,000 yards now. But at that time in 84, like nobody was doing that. And yeah, so the other thing with Marino is he never won a Super Bowl. So he got to a Super Bowl in 84, I believe, and lost the Super Bowl then. But he never won a Super Bowl. So I think the knock on him was always can't win the big one or whatever, never had a Super Bowl. But if you look at his regular season stats, one of the best all time from a statistical standpoint as a quarterback. Yeah. Yeah. So that to me kind of stands out as the best quarterback there.
Yeah. So I looked at this, I think kind of similar to you did, and I looked at regular season. So I thought who, was pretty good and didn't do much as far as Super Bowls go. I don't love it, but I landed on Aaron Rodgers, who went to, the one Super Bowl that he won and hasn't been back since then.
Yeah.
And so, when we talk about a guy who, as far as just raw talent, might be, possibly the greatest quarterback we've seen, as far as just, arm talent, not, the games he's won or his, perception of the game, but just, that ability. Fantastic quarterback, just passes the eye test, has won, 3 MVPs.
Yeah.
Just
going to win the big one.
Yeah.
He won one big one. Yeah.
Just a lot of struggles in the playoffs. And so, when you think of Aaron Rodgers, a lot of those accolades what you think of are coming from the regular season. Whereas Tom Brady, you think of the 7 Super Bowls, obviously. So, going Aaron Rodgers.
Stat merchant.
Okay, so then for basketball, would you rather have a great scorer or a great playmaker?
I'm thinking playmaker. I'm thinking like Jordan, always making plays. Yeah, he's a great scorer also, but he's also opening up a lot of other guys. John Paxson had a huge shot in the finals. Steve Kerr. So it's not just about scoring; it's about making plays and getting somebody else open and making sure the team comes out with the victory. I'm going playmaker.
Yeah, I think I see what you're saying. But I think from my perspective, I'm just going to go with a scorer. I think, especially with the way we see basketball being played today, I think just having the stability of a guy who can put up points is important to me. And I think for me, you bring in, other guys around that scorer, other role guys who then are going to be able to scheme open. And I just think it's important to have the guy that is going to be able to score, put points on the board. And then, like I said, kind of have that be the core of your offensive scheme and then have all the other guys around him.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it's the Jordan versus LeBron debate, right? Like, hey, LeBron can score a lot of points and Jordan makes the plays and gets his team to victory, right? So, but yeah.
I still like Jordan.
Yeah.
All right. Then baseball. Is baseball better with the pitch clock?
Yeah, this is an interesting one because I think this kind of depends on whether you're watching on TV or whether you're at the game. From my perspective, I think on TV it probably is a little bit better because the game's moving a little quicker. I think it shaved like 30 minutes off the average time now that they have the pitch clock, which from a TV viewing perspective is probably a little bit better. But I think going to a game, I and having been at a game with the pitch clock, I kind of like having just a little slower pace. You're out at the ballpark, you're having a good time. You want to be able to have a conversation with somebody in between pitches or whatever and kind of turn and talk about what's going on. I've caught myself kind of missing the next pitch or the next play with that pitch clock and having to speed things up a little bit. So I think it doesn't really let the game breathe a little when you're at the game. So I think it kind of varies between whether you're watching on TV or whether you're at the ballpark, if it's better or worse. But yeah.
Yeah, I guess I hadn't really thought about that. I was just kind of going to go with yes, it's better, but I hadn't really thought about being in attendance. That's a good point. Because, like you mentioned, I think it cuts down on the time it takes to play a game. It just draws in people that, viewership wise, the MLB wants to make sure they're staying, competing with some of these other leagues. And so that's kind of why I thought it was an improvement. And for me, it makes it more exciting as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely see the perspective of being at the game, wanting it not necessarily being all sped up and wanting that time between and time to turn and talk to people. Because, you don't necessarily want that moment to end too quick either. You're in the moment having fun.
Yeah, does 30 minutes really matter that much when you're at the game? You're kind of having a day at the ballpark anyway, so extend it out a little bit from my perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, then with hockey, is it harder to win a Stanley Cup or a Super Bowl? So kind of double dipping into football, but, kind of centering the conversation on the Stanley Cup.
Yeah. Both are tough, right? But I do think the Stanley Cup is probably the harder of the two. Just the grueling, you got to get through 16 games, the physicality you got to go through, the injuries, whatever it might be. There's a lot going on in hockey, and tough to repeat. I know we've seen a repeat here recently, but I do think that just the grueling aspect of it and that physicality for hockey at the 7-game series, it's just a lot harder to get through versus a single elimination path for the football and the Super Bowl.
Yeah, so looking at this question, the first thing I went and looked at was, comparing how many teams in each league haven't been, because there's 32 teams in each.
Mm-hmm.
There's 12 teams that have never been to the Super Bowl, 12 that have never won, 4 that have never been.
Okay.
There we go. And then hockey, Stanley Cup, there are 10 that have never won, 5 that have never been. So pretty similar numbers there.
Mm-hmm.
So, kind of, took that out of the thought process for the most part. So I agree. I think it's the Stanley Cup. And I have a kind of a different way I got to that, but I agree. And what I thought about was just the draft process. And in the NFL, I think you just see a lot more parity, where you think of a team like the Bears, the Patriots, the Jaguars, all had not great records last year. And the way the draft is set up with the NFL, the worst team is going to get the top pick, the team with the worst record, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to hockey, you could have the worst record, and just due to the lottery, trying to prevent teams from tanking, you could still end up with, the 5th, 6th pick, whatever. You're not getting that, necessarily superstar talent that you're getting at number 1.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just harder to turn a hockey team around as opposed to an NFL team. And so because of that, it's harder to win a championship if you're not a very good team.
Yeah, that and like the way the schedule shakes out for the NFL
Yeah,
also, right? The way that the 4th best team in the division is going to play all the other 4th best teams. So you're going to play typically a lesser schedule that following year when you have a down year, which helps, right? I mean, the Bears had a much more favorable schedule this year than last year. Also, I was thinking about this. They had 7 games that they won, in the last 2 minutes. They were not leading in the last 2 minutes of the game, and they pulled it out. That's potentially 7 additional losses that they didn't have this year. I mean, they could have easily been 4 and whatever for the year and, ended up on the better side of it. So, a little more challenge, a little easier, I guess, from the NFL standpoint to get back to the playoffs and things like that, where the NHL is just, that's a lot more grueling.
Right, and there's just so many more games in the NHL.
Yeah.
Playoffs and regular season where, the NFL and that scheduling piece, each game is just that much more important.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, and then we threw in a wild card question here at the end. So, what do you think? What would you say is the best sport to watch live?
Yeah, for me, I'm actually going to go back to hockey again here. So I think just the amount of action that you have, the physicality, there's always something going on in hockey. The up tempo, the pace that you have, and I think back to like one of the most exciting live events that I ever went to, a sports event that I ever witnessed was Game One of the Western Conference Finals back in I think 2002. It was the Red Wings and Avalanche, huge rivalry at the time. And I was at the arena at Joe Louis Arena, and I hate the Red Wings, but what an electric environment to be in. And I mean, again, just constant action, things happening all the time, the crowd's into it. It was just incredible to be at. So for me, that's the best live event for me is hockey, watching it live.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And I think I'm going to disagree here. And I thought about it a little bit, and baseball is close for me. I just think, I don't know, the baseball games I've been at, it's been a good time. It's just the environment as a whole is awesome, the people around you, and just, I think it depends a lot on where you're sitting, where you're at, the ballpark. But I don't know, baseball is just kind of a good time. The weather's usually somewhat nice as long as it's not too hot. Um, but I'm still just going to fall back on football. I just enjoy football that much. And I think, especially like, I think of college football, especially where it's just kind of a different type of fan base. You can get a group of friends together, go to those games. People are really into it. And the NFL as well. But um, yeah, I just think football is a great time. I enjoy watching that one the most. And I think it's fun to be at football games.
Yeah, yeah. I can see that. I kind of like football on TV a little bit better. Just, I don't know, getting to it. Having 3 TVs going and watching all the different games at the same time. But there is something about being at the ballpark, whether it's baseball, football, hockey. It's just exciting being there live
Yeah, it
versus
is for sure.
being at home watching on TV.
Yeah.
Different atmosphere, different vibes.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, into the film room then. We're just gonna hit the Bears again because it's gonna be our last chance for a while.
All right, I got to do it next week. Yeah, for sure.
Right.
I guess,
So
yeah.
might as well. 20-17 overtime loss to the Rams Sunday night. Definitely a tough one. And because I was going around a lot today actually telling people I almost think I'd be less upset if they lost by like 10, as opposed to losing this close game in overtime because you want to see your team compete, you want to see them be right there, but the worst part about it almost is that they were right there, and that honestly they probably outplayed the Rams
Yeah.
for parts of that game, and so it was just a game that they really could have won, and that's what's the hardest part is like they really were right there.
Well, the defense for sure did step
Stepped
up.
up,
I mean,
yeah.
the Rams really couldn't get anything going. Whether it was the cold atmosphere and everything there, obviously the Bears have home field advantage, which helps in that situation. But the defense really stepped up. I mean, Brisker had a heck of a game. He was in on everything.
Yeah.
The only thing, defensively, you want to have a turnover. They're leading the league this year in turnovers. Didn't get this game, and so that kind of hurt, especially when the offense turned the ball over 3 times. You hope the defense can kind of get one of those back for you. Maybe that was the only unfortunate thing, but Dennis Allen called a great game. The defense played fantastic, and yeah, I mean, you're right there in it at the end. What a throw by Williams to commit there at the end. I mean, the whole game I'm thinking they're in it. And then right at the end, when he's scrambling back, I'm like, is this how it's going to end? He's just going to toss this ball up and we're going to lose on this little whatever. And Komet caught that ball and I'm like, this is unreal. They're going to win this game now. This is how this, season has gone and everything. And so it's like, oh my gosh, they're going to do this again. I thought they were going to go for 2, honestly, right there. I was a little surprised, but I guess, I heard Ben Johnson after the game talk about their short yardage plays really weren't working the rest of the game. They went for it on 4th down a few times. I think they were like 2 of 6 on 4th down in the game, or 2 of 5. But short yardage wasn't really working for them. I think with the home field, the crowd really into it, he thought overtime gave him a better chance, which really, I think it did. They did get the ball back. They had their opportunity there in overtime. Again, kind of Williams throwing another interception, which was uncharacteristic for him. I did go back and look at that interception again, though. He threw in overtime, and it actually, so he had to the right of him, there's man press coverage on the right side of the line, and then on the opposite side where DJ Moore was, it looked like they were actually playing like a zone coverage, and the safety was like 15 yards deep, 15, 20 yards deep. So if you look at it, if DJ Moore cuts that off a little bit flatter, like he should, like 15, 20 yards down the field, he's wide open. I mean, there's so much space between that press coverage that they had on that right side and then that safety being as deep as he was. If he cuts that off about 15, 20 yards, and they were about on the 50-yard line, they get the ball down to about the 30, and he could break a tackle too, who knows. But they're, pretty much guaranteed getting it down to the 30, and then you're in field goal range. And that game looks a lot different, right? So,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't really look at that one as like a Caleb Williams, he threw a bad pass. I think it was more DJ Moore, and I don't know what he was doing
Yeah, I don't
because
know what happened with that route.
he just like didn't look like he was interested at all in even going for the ball. So unfortunate that's the way that it ended for them. But heck of a season,
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
Didn't think that we'd be winning the North heading into the season, and then obviously to beat the Packers in the playoffs is awesome. Get to the divisional round and you're at overtime. We talked about it last week. Like, it's stuff to build on now. Heading into next year, you got the right coach, you got the right quarterback. That combination we talked about earlier too, like, it's clicking, and we're hopefully going to see some more success year after year now with those two guys in place with the Bears. So pretty awesome.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I mean, I think I looked before the season and I thought 7-8 wins was about where we were going to be at. So, like you said, winning the North, having 11 wins, 2 seed in the playoffs, not at all where I thought they were going to be at. So I think ahead of schedule for sure, and good things to look forward to. You even mentioned the defense. I think the secondary is something that would have been a strength, and we saw that in this game finally, where Jalen Johnson, Kyler Gordon, Jaquan Brisker, everybody was in there. C.J. Gardner-Johnson, like all those guys hadn't really, I don't know if they'd played a game together yet.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens to C.J. Gardner-Johnson, whether he's back or not. But all the other guys, people are getting healthy, and I think there's some good pieces on that defense. So good things to look forward to.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And, should be some good games here in the championship round. Obviously, you got your Seahawks jersey on now. So you might be pretty excited about the Seahawks domination the other night and heading into the championship game. Another divisional foe with the Rams. They blow through the 49ers, and now they got the Rams coming in. So hopefully have some exciting games to talk about next weekend, too.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
All right, then into our extra innings. Anything you want to kind of circle back to, hit on real quick before we wrap up?
Yeah, just one thing I was thinking about we didn't really talk through was like the coaching carousel right now in the NFL, and obviously a lot of movement there. Sean McDermott is now out with the Bills. Lost the other day, trying to go another direction here, I guess, and see if they can get over the hump and finally get to a Super Bowl and finally win a Super Bowl, I guess. Which kind of a bummer, right? Having lived through the 90s and 4 straight Super Bowls they went to, never won one, and now Josh Allen not able to get over the hump. And I thought this might be his year without Mahomes in there, without Burrow in there, and was really hoping that this might be the year they get there. But it is interesting to me thinking about the coaches now, and there's a lot of coaches that are getting fired, but then it's like they're looking to get a new job right away. John Harbaugh going to the Giants. You got Stefanski getting fired by the Browns, getting picked up by the Falcons. I think there's 6 more openings right now. Obviously, the Bills probably is the top one that people are looking at. Maybe the Ravens, Steelers. But it's interesting that like this coaching carousel of like, they get fired from one team, but then picked up by another. Is it really the coach that's not good? Is it just the organization he's not fitting with and not meshing with? Maybe the quarterback and coach combination. So we'll see how these guys do get into a new team. And obviously these other spots getting filled, see who they get filled with. But lots of action going on there.
This is definitely a kind of different coaching cycle than what we see normally with all these guys getting another chance right away. And I almost think teams are looking for the next, kind of Andy Reid getting, let go by the Eagles, goes to the Chiefs, has success there. And I don't know necessarily that that's something that's going to be a winning formula every time.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously it's worked that time, but who knows? I guess we'll kind of see what happens. It's definitely been kind of exciting because
Yeah.
it's just a little bit different.
That's true. I mean, Andy Reid, people don't remember the lack of success he had with the Eagles, or not being able to win the big one with the Eagles, and then he gets to the Chiefs, and look at the success there. So maybe it is just a time and place fit, getting the right quarterback or whatever in place.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see what Harbaugh and those guys do going forward here. But yeah, just a lot going on the coaching side.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
So
All right, then I'll just point out Miami, who we just saw win the national championship after Carson Beck's
not Miami.
Indiana.
Yeah.
Sorry,
I wish
was
it was
thinking about
Miami.
Indiana winning the national championship after Carson Beck threw that interception on the last drive.
Yep.
Definitely a great story for Indiana, turning around so quick. Kurt Signetti, Fernando Mendoza, all these guys. Not having a single 5-star is pretty impressive. Just I think points to the coaching, and I think just the national championship game in general. What I notice is more Miami also, where you think the week before they almost weren't in the playoff. That week before they weren't, and there's obviously going to be so much debate going on. Anytime with these rankings, I think you could solve that by just not having rankings come out every week like they do right now. Make it more like college basketball, but you start to wonder, what could these teams right on that bubble have done? Notre Dame, Texas, Vanderbilt. It just seems like this playing field's almost a little bit more leveled, where there's so many teams that could do it. A team that almost wasn't in there, made it all the way to the championship, played a close game, only lost by 6, had a chance to win it at the end. So definitely exciting, I think, for college football.
Yeah, not exciting for me to say Indiana won the national championship.
Yeah.
But obviously being Purdue fans, that's never fun. But I would say, to your point on the parity in college football now, the landscape is kind of leveled there with the portal and with NIL and everything else, where you've got schools. Indiana has the most losses of all time in college football history, right? But and a couple of years ago, they're struggling, and all of a sudden now, up win a national championship. It didn't take long to rebuild, but you start bringing players in from the portal. I do think it does kind of level things out to where you see Indiana win. Texas Tech obviously was up there as like the 3 seed this year. You're going to have more and more teams, I feel like, kind of come up out of the ranks that maybe we haven't seen in a long time. If they do get the money and get the right players kind of filling the rosters, it'll be kind of interesting to see who else can do this. It's not just an Indiana thing, but there's probably some others there that are lying in the weeds waiting for their chance to get their NIL money. We got to find some deep pockets at Purdue, I guess.
I guess
to
so.
get some money
Let's
there.
just see.
Bring in whoever, but we'll see.
Yeah. Okay, then I think that's about all we've got. So just looking at our scoreboard real quick. Moving the chains, our discussion about building a franchise around which position. We went kind of 2 and 2, so we agreed on 2 of them and then disagreed 2 of them. And then our 2-minute drill, we had a couple that we agreed on, those baseball and hockey questions, then football, basketball, and then that wild card question through, and we disagreed. So a little bit more we're seeing.
Yeah.
I think I get some of the stuff that I think about sports-wise from you, but also there's definitely a difference.
Yeah. It's good to have a little bit of banter here, a little bit of disagreement, and taking the different sides. I think it's good to have some different perspective here to consider.
Yeah, especially as we kind of learn how to do this. And
Yeah,
get into it.
exactly.
Yeah. All right, then that's going to do it for this drive on First and 4. If you like today's conversation, make sure to follow, rate, and share the show. We'll be back next time breaking down the biggest stories and our generational opinions from the 4 major sports. Until then, we'll see you for the next play.
Peace out,
Bye, guys.